Picture this. You're standing on a beach where the ocean itself glows electric blue with every wave. Wild horses run past you at sunset. And the best part? There are maybe 5 other people in sight. This isn't the Caribbean. This isn't some exotic international destination. This is America, and you probably didn't even know these places existed. While millions of tourists pile into the same overcrowded beaches year after year, there are coastal towns scattered across this country that are so unusual and so far off the mainstream radar that they feel like secrets hiding in plain sight. If you love discovering places that haven't been ruined by crowds yet, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're about to take you to 10 American beach towns that will completely rewrite what you think coastal living looks like. We're talking about places where you can drive your truck directly onto the sand, where one town literally banned cars over a century ago, and where the water glows at night. Let's dive in. Number 10, Port Aransas, Texas, the Gulf Coast. Wild card. Port Aransas sits on Mustang Island with roughly 4,000 year-round residents that swell to over 30,000 in summer. This barrier island has resisted becoming just another cookie-cutter resort town, and the moment you arrive, you'll notice golf carts everywhere. They literally outnumber regular cars. But here's the real quirk. You can drive your vehicle directly onto the sand. Trucks, SUVs, whatever you've got. It's perfectly legal, and on any given day, the beach is dotted with F-150s, tents, and families who've basically moved their entire setup oceanside. Let's be honest about what you're getting. This isn't pristine Caribbean water. The Gulf Coast gives you brown, seaweed-filled waves. The town isn't trying to win beauty contests. What you get are dive bars, bait shops, and rental houses that have weathered decades of salt air and hurricanes. In 2017, Hurricane Harvey nearly erased Port Aransas from the map. The town rebuilt, but you can still see the scars. Some infrastructure is perpetually catching up. What makes Port Aransas special is its unapologetic authenticity. Your neighbors on the beach might be millionaires or construction workers, and nobody cares. The fishing culture runs deep. People here define themselves by what they catch. Port Aransas is for people who value access and authenticity over polish. It's warm water, excellent fishing, and a community that rebuilt itself through sheer stubbornness. If you can handle imperfection and enjoy watching trucks sink axle-deep into sand, it might just be paradise. Number 9, Dungeness, Washington, the Pacific Northwest's endless beach. Dungeness sits on Washington's Olympic Peninsula, and it's more of a community than a town. What makes it remarkable is the Dungeness Spit, a natural sand formation stretching over 5 miles into the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Walking the spit is a commitment, 10 miles round trip on sand, with no facilities and no shortcuts. Just you, the beach, seals watching from the water, and the slow realization that you might have bitten off more than you can chew. At the end sits the new Dungeness Lighthouse, built in 1857 and still operational. If you make it all the way there, you've earned bragging rights. You can actually volunteer to be a lighthouse keeper and stay there for a week. But let's set expectations. This is the Pacific Northwest. The water is brutally cold, even in summer. You're not coming here to swim and sunbathe. You're coming to hike, watch birds, and experience weather as a phenomenon. The Spit is part of a national wildlife refuge, meaning you're walking through protected wilderness. The beaches are dramatic and moody, often shrouded in mist. By mile 3, you start questioning your life choices. By mile 5, you're either experiencing enlightenment or exhaustion. The area benefits from a rain shadow effect from the Olympic Mountains, making it surprisingly sunny compared to Seattle. But sunny for the Pacific Northwest still means you might wear layers in July. Dungeness is for hikers and nature obsessives who find beauty in gray skies and crashing waves. It offers a beach that feels genuinely untouched, wild, and indifferent to whether you're there or not. Charter number 8, Vieques, Puerto Rico. The island that glows. Vieques is a Puerto Rican island off the main island's east coast, home to about 9,000 residents. For decades, it was a U.S. Navy bombing range, which kept development minimal. The Navy left in 2003, and what remained was an island frozen in time with miles of undeveloped coastline. The real draw is Mosquito Bay, which contains one of the highest concentrations of bioluminescent microorganisms anywhere on Earth. When you kayak through it at night and disturb the water, these tiny creatures light up, creating an electric blue glow around every paddle stroke. Fish darting beneath leaf-glowing trails. It looks like CGI, but it's just biology. Beyond the Bio Bay, Vieques offers Caribbean beaches the way they used to be. Clear water, healthy reefs, and miles of sand where you might be alone. Wild horses roam freely across the island. The snorkeling and diving are world-class because decades of restricted access meant the reefs weren't destroyed. But infrastructure is challenging. Power outages are common, sometimes lasting hours. Some areas still have contamination concerns from Navy bombing years. Supplies are limited because everything comes by ferry or small plane, and it's not cheap despite being rustic. Vieques is for people who value natural wonders over conveniences and can handle infrastructure quirks. If you're willing to rough it a little, you'll experience kayaking through bioluminescent water and seeing wild horses on Caribbean beaches, experiences you literally cannot get anywhere else in the United States. Jauron 7, Whitefish Point, Michigan, where the Great Lakes feel like. Ocean's Whitefish Point juts into Lake Superior from Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and standing on that beach feels less like being at a lake and more like standing at the edge of a cold, unforgiving sea. Lake Superior is the largest freshwater lake in the world by surface area, and it creates its own weather systems and waves. Over 200 vessels have gone down in these waters. The most famous is the Edmund Fitzgerald, which sank in a November storm in 1975, taking all 29 crew members. The wreck lies close to Whitefish Point, and the Lighthouse and Maritime Museum tell the brutal history with the respect that tragedy demands. The beach is stunning in a stark, dramatic way. The sand is light-colored, and the water is crystal clear. But don't be fooled, this water is frigid. Even in summer, Lake Superior rarely gets above 50 degrees. Whitefish Point is also a major birding hotspot and critical migration stopover. The area has an almost mystical quality, isolated, windswept, and haunted by maritime history. But isolation comes with trade-offs. Whitefish Point is hours from any significant town. Services are extremely limited. Winters are brutal with lake-effect snow measured in feet. Even summer is cool. This is a beach where you come to contemplate the power of nature and the 29 men who went down with the Fitzgerald. It's a pilgrimage site for people who love Great Lakes culture, maritime history, and landscapes that remind you humans are very small. Chaktarar, Nur 6, Tybee Island, Georgia. The Southern Time Capsule. Tybee Island sits about 18 miles east of Savannah with roughly 3,000 year-round residents and a vibe that's aggressively casual. This is where old beach houses with peeling paint are considered charming and pretension goes to die. The beaches are wide, accessible, and refreshingly uncrowded. Unlike many coastal areas where resorts monopolize access, Tybee's beaches feel democratic, and the dolphins are everywhere. You'll see them from shore regularly, often. Close enough to make you nervous if you're swimming. They're hunting, playing, completely unbothered by humans watching from the beach. Tybee also has a marine science center where you can learn about sea turtles and coastal ecology without it feeling overly commercialized. The proximity to Savannah is a huge advantage, close enough for city amenities, far enough to maintain island identity. But Tybee is dated. Some infrastructure is aging. The town hasn't seen massive investment in decades, which is either charm or liability depending on what you value. Summer humidity is also no joke. Coastal Georgia air feels thick enough to chew. Still, Tybee offers something increasingly rare: authenticity. This is a beach town that hasn't been gentrified into oblivion or turned into a resort clone. It's rough around the edges and completely fine with being exactly what it is: a southern coastal throwback that refuses to change. For people who value character over polish, Tybee Island is a gem. Number 5. Galveston, Texas, the island that refuses to die. In 1900, a hurricane killed an estimated 8,000 people in Galveston, the deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history. The city was utterly destroyed. And here's what Galveston did: it raised the entire island. Engineers jacked up thousands of buildings and pumped sand underneath to elevate the island's grade level. Then they built a massive seawall, 17 feet high and 10 miles long. It's one of the most audacious engineering projects in American history. Today, Galveston is a fascinating mix of Victorian architecture, cruise ship tourism, and Gulf Coast grit. The Strand Historic District preserves beautiful 19th century buildings that survived because of that elevation project. The seawall is still there, protecting the island and serving as a landmark where people gather to watch storms roll in. Galveston's beaches face the brown waters of the Gulf, which means they're not Caribbean clear, but they're free and accessible. The city also hosts Mardi Gras, the third largest celebration in the United States. Cruise ships dock here, creating an odd dynamic. Parts cater to tourists, while other parts are residential neighborhoods where people live with full awareness that this island has been destroyed before and could be again. Hurricane anxiety is constant. Galveston is also economically diverse. Wealth and poverty, Victorian mansions and aging apartments, often just blocks apart. It's rough around the edges, still recovering in some areas from past storms. But here's what makes Galveston special: resilience. This place has survived catastrophic destruction, economic shifts, and countless storms. It's still here, still functioning, refusing to go anywhere. Chakra, Number 4. Mackinac Island, Michigan, the place where cars don't exist. In 1898, Mackinac Island banned automobiles. Over a century later, that decision still defines everything. Mackinac sits in Lake Huron, accessible only by ferry. About 500 people live here year-round. Transportation is limited to bicycles, horses, and walking. That's it. No cars. The result is a town that sounds like the 19th century. Hooves on pavement, bicycle bells, carriage wheels. The entire island is a National Historic Landmark. Victorian buildings line the streets. The Grand Hotel, with its world-famous front porch, sits on a bluff overlooking the lake. But there are catches. First, the smell. With horses as primary transportation, manure is everywhere. The two dominant scents are horse manure and fudge, because every shop sells fudge. Second, the cost. Tourism drives prices up, and since everything ferries onto the island, accommodations and food cost significantly more. Third, the crowds. In summer, Mackinac gets packed. Thousands of tourists descend daily. Winter is completely different. Most businesses close, and the year-round residents embrace an isolation that's both peaceful and challenging. Mackinac works because it committed fully to preservation. The no-car policy isn't a gimmick, it's foundational identity. For visitors, Mackinac offers something genuinely unique: a car-free island where time feels different, and you can briefly experience what American coastal towns felt like before automobiles changed everything. Just be prepared for fudge shops. So many fudge shops. Choctaw, Genre 3, Cannon Beach, Oregon, where the scenery demands respect. Haystack Rock, a 235-foot sea stack, rises from Cannon Beach like a natural monument, dominating the landscape. It's been photographed millions of times, featured in movies like The Goonies and Twilight, and still looks surreal in person. Cannon Beach sits on Oregon's northern coast with about 1,700 residents. This is Pacific Northwest beach culture in its purest form. Cold, moody, beautiful, in ways that have nothing to do with sunshine. The beach is wide and wild, often empty even in summer, because Oregon coast weather keeps casual beachgoers away. Don't come to sunbathe. You come to experience weather, fog rolling in, storms battering the coast, dramatic clouds creating light shows. At low tide, you can walk out to Haystack Rock and explore the tide pools around its base. These are protected marine gardens. In summer, puffins nest on the rock itself. The town is artsy without being obnoxious. Galleries, local shops, restaurants that prioritize quality. The vibe values creativity and authenticity. But Cannon Beach is expensive. Real estate is high and tourism keeps prices elevated. And the weather is Oregon coast weather. Rain is common, fog is normal, you might wear a jacket in July. The ocean is too cold for comfortable swimming. The beauty here is dramatic and moody, not comfortable. The Pacific Northwest doesn't apologize for its weather. It builds identity around it. For people who find beauty in gray skies and crashing waves, Cannon Beach is transcendent. Standing next to Haystack Rock as fog rolls in and puffins circle overhead, that's what makes this place unforgettable. Number 2. Ocracoke, North Carolina. The Outer Banks Time Machine. Ocracoke sits at the southern end of the Outer Banks, quietly being what the entire area used to be before development arrived. Ocracoke is accessible only by ferry or private boat. The vehicle ferry takes over an hour, which creates a natural barrier that keeps day trippers minimal. About 1,000 people live here year-round, and the village is small, walkable, and dominated by golf carts and bicycles. This is also where Blackbeard the pirate died in 1718. The history here isn't manufactured, it's real, documented, celebrated. The beaches are protected as part of Cape Hatteras National Seashore, meaning miles of wild, undeveloped coastline. The Ocracoke Lighthouse, built in 1823, is the oldest continuously operating lighthouse in North Carolina. But living on or visiting Ocracoke requires accepting trade-offs. Medical care is limited, supplies come by, ferry, which means shortages happen. Hurricane evacuations are mandatory and logistically complicated. You're dependent on ferry schedules, miss it, and you're stuck. Someone who summers on Ocracoke described it perfectly. Ocracoke is what the Outer Banks used to be, quiet, authentic, uncommercial. But that's because it's hard to get to and harder to supply. You're trading convenience for character. That's exactly right. The ferry ride isn't just transportation. It's a filter. It separates people who genuinely want to be there from people just checking boxes. For those who make the journey, Ocracoke offers an Outer Banks experience that hasn't been sanitized or commercialized. You get genuine coastal culture and a community that has maintained its identity precisely because it's hard to reach. Jabor 1. Sanibel Island, Florida. Where shells become an obsession. Sanibel Island sits off Florida's Gulf Coast, home to about 7,000 residents and famous worldwide for shells. The island's east-west orientation causes shells to wash up in staggering quantities. The activity has become so consuming that it created a recognized posture called the Sanibel stoop, the hunched position people develop from constantly bending over to collect shells. Yes, this is documented in medical literature. The shelling here is world-class. Dawn is prime time, and you'll see people on the beach at sunrise walking slowly, bent over, completely absorbed. There are shell shops, shell museums, and shell competitions. But Sanibel is about more than shells. Much of the island is part of the J.N. Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge, protected ecosystems, incredible birding, and wildlife everywhere. Manatees, dolphins, and roseate spoonbills are regularly visible. The island protected itself early with strict development codes. No buildings over 3 stories, no national chain stores except a few grandfathered in. The result is an island that has maintained its natural character, but that protection came with a price tag. Sanibel is expensive. Real estate is high. The bridge toll to access the island is $6. Hurricane Ian in 2022 devastated parts of Sanibel, and while much has been rebuilt, the storm left scars. Someone who has visited for decades put it this way: Sanibel is one of the last Florida barrier islands that feels like old Florida, but it's also increasingly expensive and exclusive. Sanibel is for people who value natural preservation and are willing to pay for it. It's for shelling enthusiasts and families who want a Florida beach experience without the chaos of Miami or the commercialization of Clearwater. Just be prepared. You will develop the Sanibel stoop. You will collect shells you'll never do anything with. And 3 hours will disappear while you're hunched over searching for just one more perfect specimen. Conclusion. So there you have it. 10 American beach towns that exist completely outside the mainstream. Conversation. From bioluminescent water in Vieques to car-free Victorian streets on Mackinac Island, from shipwreck-haunted shores of Whitefish Point to shell-obsessed beaches of Sanibel, these places prove that America's coastlines hold secrets most travelers will never discover. These aren't the beaches on travel magazine covers. They're the places that require ferry commitments, that demand you accept infrastructure quirks, that force you to trade convenience for character. And that's exactly what makes them special. The best beach towns aren't the ones everyone knows about. They're the ones you have to search for, the ones that require effort to reach, the ones that reward curiosity with experiences you literally cannot get anywhere else. So which one spoke to you? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if this video opened your eyes to places you never knew existed, hit that like button and subscribe, because America's hidden coastal gems are out there waiting, and we're just getting started finding them. The beaches are real, the experiences are unforgettable, and most people will never know they exist. Your move.